Good morning. It is Thursday, the 3rd of October, 2019. I'm Michi Bradley from REC Networks. This is live from Riverton, and I just wanted to get on here with our weekly update on the various happenings at our favorite federal regulator, the Federal Communications Commission. And yes, I hear myself coming back, so I need to shut that off here really quickly. And mute, go away. There you go. You're gone. And of course, we got to turn down the phone so that doesn't bother us. Just had a very late start as usual, and so we tried to rush all this in and getting this going here. I wanted to first, before I get into the agenda here, I've got a last minute question came in on the LPFM group, and I told people to come over here to the live broadcast in order to in order to get an answer to this. And the question is, how many LPFM stations can a full power FM organization license? All right, good question. Now, now normally when I do these, I always go to my notes, I always go to my rules sections and stuff like that, get you the chapters and verses and all that. And even though I know a lot of them off the top of my head, I always like to go somewhere else to get it to verify that I'm giving you the right information. And the question came up, okay, how many LPFM stations can a full power FM organization own? Now, in most cases, the answer is 0. There is a cross ownership rule, and it's 73,860, I'm going to say, 860. Yeah, it's 73,860, which discusses the cross ownership between LPFM and other services. Now, I do want to point out, though, that there is an exception to the rule of 0 where it comes to full service cross ownership. A full service broadcast station that is licensed to a bona fide educational institution such as a college or university, that may be running, that may be the licensee of an NPR station, is permitted under 73,860D to hold an LPFM station as long as the following conditions are met. We fought for this one many years ago. Very much the way it works is that the licensee obviously has to be an accredited educational institution. We talked about that. And they're applying for an authorization for an LPFM station that is, quote, will be managed and operated on a day-by-day basis by students of the accredited educational institution. So in other words, see, we put that in there. This is something that I was pushing for 20 years ago. This is something that others were pushing for 20 years ago. And the problem was that, we had the issue of LPFM, of college stations that were shutting out the students, and it's still happening to this day. Is college stations that are shutting out the students, and going to an all NPR, allowing some other nonprofit or other organization to manage it. And now we have wine clubs. Why does a radio station need a wine club? What kind of, that goes to show you the kind of audience they're really interested in. They're interested in the people that have the money. And I know there's a lot of hatred towards National Public Radio, um, in regards to this, and that I understand. But that's the reason why that rule is there. But in any other case, there cannot be any cross ownership, and and if there is suspected cross ownership, that should have been called out during the application process. And if this is so near and dear to you, now of course with renewals coming up, we have an opportunity. If there is an issue, we have an opportunity to speak up, especially if you're in that community where an informal objection carries weight. Now of course there's a stigma behind filing objections against renewals, and the key thing is that you've got to go on the record. And a lot of people are afraid to go on the record because they feel retribution from their employer. They feel that they may be, that it may be confused and seen as a conflict of interest because it may be seen as an opinion of the employer. And then for the stations that do get objections, and if it's something that is substantiated, like what's going on in Charlottesville, all of a sudden they're bullied. Yeah. Oh God, that's got to stop. And but overall, when you look at the number of renewals that have been filed so far, the fact that very few, really Charlottesville was the only LPFM objection that we have seen so far on renewals. So anyway, I'm on YouTube chat. Feel free to drop in the chat. I am watching the chat. All right, so feel free to pop in questions anytime, comments, anything we're talking about. I do interact with the chat. All right, so all right, so let's do this. But yeah, full service stations should not be involved with LPFM. Now, another question did come up though, and I'm going to just get this really quickly, because somebody had expressed a concern to me that that the rules state that we do not, that an LPFM board member cannot, quote, interact with a full service station. That is incorrect. A full service, someone who is on the board of an LPFM cannot have an ownership stake in a full service station. They cannot, they cannot have, they cannot own stock in the station, and so, they can't own stock in the station. They can't have any kind of ownership interest. They can't be a partner and such like that. That's where the issues are. There's also some concerns where it comes to management and operating agreements and time brokerage. So those are some of the things that we've got to look at where it comes to that. All right, I want to quickly, let's talk about our wonderful topic of renewals. And here's where we are as of this morning for Florida. We're currently at 78% of filings for renewals in Florida. Renewals were due on the 1st, and now it's the 3rd, and this is where we're at right now. So there's been a very slight amount of movement on filing applications. And normally the FCC will give a grace period of about 30 days for renewals before they start. They're going to send you, the stations that are up there, they're going to send a nastygram to remind them that of the renewals, and that they need to file right away. And they normally give them a drop dead date about 30 days after the original filing deadline before they threaten a $3,000 forfeiture, a $3,000 fine. And so that's something that you know, if you're on this list and you are legit, you need to get your um, renewal in right away. And you can contact REC 1-844 REC LPFM or LPFM at recnet.com, and you know, I'll help you out, and let's get you going here. And you know, I am aware of the situations at a few of these stations, and I'm also aware of some of the controversy, especially in Florida. Florida is a hotbed for problems, and yes, I recognize that. And I can tell you, a lot of the problems, you know, a lot of the problems that we're dealing with these days are coming out of Florida. A lot of the big ticket LPFM sales are coming out of Florida, and you know, there's a lot of spectrum warehousing going on there. And I think that quite a few of these, not all of them, but there's a few there that I feel like, you know, they're just simply warehoused, you know, that they're just warehouse spectrum and such. So yeah, if you've got you know, if you've got a if you're in Florida, you have or in the Virgin Islands, there's 2 stations in the Virgin Islands that have not made their filings yet. Get those in. Just a reminder too, for Alabama and Georgia, your filing deadline is December 2nd, December 2, because December 1st falls on a Sunday. So make sure you get your filings in. Make sure that you get your pre-file announcements on the air on the 16th, and then again on the November 1st and November 16th. And you know, so that way you've got it all going on. Now, after that, after Alabama and Georgia, we're going to Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. So Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, you're on deck. All right, you're on deck. You're in the on deck circle, and your time will be coming up next. So make sure you've got all your information together. If you were silent during for more than 30 days during your license term, make sure that you get some documentation printed up, you know, typed up, to just basically explain what happened, and you know, why you were silent for that period. If you had any notices of violation, any notices of apparent liability, or anything like that, make sure you got all that documented in a, you know, just in a capsule form to upload to your renewal form. So that's where we're at on renewals. Let's shift to a totally different subject. There's been a little bit of buzz going around lately. There's been a couple of articles that seem to have resurfaced in regards to towers. Also, too, SBE Chapter 47 in Los Angeles is going to be doing a presentation, I believe, on towers. I thought I saw that. What a lot of this has to do with is the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018. And in the FAA Reauthorization Act, there is some discussion in regards to towers that are over 50 feet and less than 200 feet. So therefore, they're you know, and we're not talking about ones that are near airports where a tower registration would be required. And this new statute places some new restrictions on these towers for marking and such. Now, this is only in statute, but I just want to clear up a couple things, because I'm hearing a lot of buzz that this covers every single tower that's more than 50 feet high, and it's not true. What this covers is, as we mentioned, towers between 50 and 200 feet. But the towers have to be used in a rural area and either used for agricultural purposes or is immediately adjacent to such areas. So therefore, the FAA uses a definition which can be found in a totally different part of law that defines a rural area as a city, town, or unincorporated area with a population of no more than 10,000. And the couple of the key words there, of course, is used for agricultural or adjacent to. And where this came from, this issue came out as a result of several aviation accidents that involved crop dusting aircraft. And the monitoring systems and the small windmills and various things that have been put into place in and around these agricultural areas. And now, of course, Riverton, we are in an agricultural area. We are, I've got a big field across the street from me. They just did watermelons. So we've got a lot of bad watermelons here for the chickens to enjoy. They love them. So keeping in mind that that is part of the marking, that's part of the rules that they're talking about, that antennas may need, that towers are going to need to be marked. Now, there are a couple of very interesting exclusions on here that I want you to be aware of. It excludes any tower that is adjacent to a house, barn, or other building. So therefore, if there's a building there and you've got a tower that is abutting the building, it's just right adjacent to your house, normally like an amateur radio antenna, that is not some big contester with huge antennas. I know of somebody who would probably fall under this antenna marking regulation. For those of you who just have antennas next to your house, on your roof and such, and the LPFM stations that are in that situation, there shouldn't be an issue. Now, of course, what I'd like to see is somebody try to loophole the quote other building. Would a transmitter hut next to the tower be considered quote other building? Perhaps. Also, too, if the structure already has an antenna structure registration number, these rules don't. This regulation does not. This statute does not apply. This is still statute. Now, despite this, what I have not seen yet is I have not seen either the FAA or the FCC implement any specific regulation, put in any specific regulation to implement this statute. And, I have not seen any changes to the FAA's advisory circulars that they put out to advise of this kind of stuff. And the FCC has not amended their rules yet, or has put in any kind of requirement. Now, what's not listed here is that the FAA does have a database where you can voluntarily give information about your tower. It is an obstructions database, and this does help. This does help pilots. As somebody who does loosely follow the general aviation community, I would suggest that you do that. If you've got a higher than usual tower, even if there's no even if there's no ASR required, you definitely want to register it and get that together, because if we can save a life, let's do it. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat here on YouTube, and let's see if anybody has posted anything on the RECnet here. We should also keep a watch on the we should keep a watch too on the REC page here. And I'm sorry I'm boring y'all to death with this stuff, but this is what we do. This is definitely what we do here. Let's get through some of these. Excuse me here. There we go. Let's get through some of these other items here. MB Docket 19193, which of course is the big low power FM technical change NPRM that's coming up. There's our comment and reply comment dates. Those are coming up here. It's coming up fast. So let's get that going. Now obviously the big issue that I've got on this on the NPRM that the FCC released was the FCC's tentative rejection of LP 250, as well as the FCC's tentative rejection of any kind of contour relief for translators, for LPFMs being required to protect FM translators. So obviously, the comments that will be made by REC in this proceeding are going to be very top-heavy on LP 250 and also top-heavy on the translators. And what the FCC has cited, and this is where we need your help, and the FCC cited that one of the reasons, that the reason why they rejected the LP 250 is that there was, quote unquote, and keep in mind this was since the last time that LP 250 was brought up back in 2012 in the in the fourth notice of proposed rulemaking, which led to the sixth report and order in 2013, or it's 2012, 2012, whatever. The FCC claims that there was no new evidence to or any changes to cite that, to warrant bringing LP 250 back on the table. Now, remember that the main reason that the FCC rejected LP 250 back in 2012 with the sixth report and order was they claimed that there was infighting within the LPFM community, and that the LPFM community could not come to agreement. And what was at stake here was the placement of LP 250 stations and limiting them to certain areas way out in very rural, deep areas, including using Census Bureau designations that don't even exist anymore and have been phased into other things. Okay, good morning, Joy. Good morning, Brock. Glad to see you on the chat. But, again, I need to point out that those who were fighting, who were insisting on getting this only into the rural areas was the Amherst Alliance. Nick Leggett, Don Shellhart. What have they done for LP? What have they done now? Now, of course, Nick Leggett is no longer with us. I think Don Shellhart's in really poor health right now. I think he's still alive, but he's in poor health. I have not heard from him in a very long time. What have they done for LPFM over that time, up until 2012? Absolutely nothing. The groups that wanted LP 250 where it could fit was REC, Prometheus Radio Project, the previous iteration of the Philadelphia offices, and Brandy Doyle as the policy director, and etc. And Common Frequency. And what do all three of these groups have in common? They actually interacted with LPFM stations and potential LPFM applicants. The reason was that the Amherst folks were pushing for hobby broadcasting. They were pushing for the ability for hobbyists, individuals, to be able to put up their own little toy radio stations, less than 10 watts, And basically what they were trying to do in some ways is they were trying to legitimize pirate radio. And so the problem was that we had this huge cloud over us of the LP10 debate, because part of that where LP250 was being discussed, it was also being discussed that LP10, the 10 watt at 30 meter service that used to exist but was never but no stations were ever authorized. It was proposed at that time that it would go away, and of course Amherst did not want to see that happen. So they started this rhetoric about how we need LP10 stations in the urban areas, even though with the LCRA, and we had proven this, that there were very few urban areas, or very few areas as much, where an LP10 station could go in, but an LP100 could not go in, and in a manner that was compliant with the Local Community Radio Act. So that's what we've been having to, so that's what we've had to deal with there, with, so that was one of our biggest obstacles, and I feel like that was one of the biggest reasons why we lost at that point. However, the FCC in this recent proceeding has not recognized that, and they feel that that is still the case, despite the fact that we talked about this in RM 11749, despite the fact that we talked about this in RM 11810. Now, also in RM 11749, we talked about some testimonials from some LPFM stations that were already on the air that were having issues with building penetration at the 100 watt level. And that was part of the argument for RM 11749, was to bring that in play, was to bring, was to say, hey, we got building penetration issues, 100 watts is just not enough, 250, extra few dB there would probably do the trick. So we had, so we had that. So what's changed since 2012 is we this proceeding right now, this 19193, does not have the distraction of the LP10 service. LP10 is not being considered. Nobody wants it. I don't want it. The New Jersey broadcasters don't want it. The NAB doesn't want it. Nobody wants it. It's not viable. And it's not even being discussed right now. It was being discussed the last time. So yeah, there was an unfair situation there, and I wanted the FCC, and this is something we're going to have to do in ex parte, is we need to get staff and we need to get commissioners to realize that what we are talking about now, we need it without that distraction of the LP10 issue looming. We need a fresh set of downs for LP250. And, and so that's one of the things I will be asking for. And we'll be asking for that in the form of a further notice of proposed rulemaking, which means that the FCC comes out with a separate notice of proposed rulemaking proposing the establishment of an LP250 service based on whatever we, determine would be the best way to go, and such. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that's what I want to see. I want to see a further notice of proposed rulemaking come out on this proceeding. That way, the filing window does not get delayed. We don't want to see a delay on the filing window because of the LP250 issue, because we don't want to see LP250 be an outright service. We want to see it as an upgrade. The idea is you put out a window, you put out LP100 stations, let the LP100 stations gauge the demand for spectrum, and then in the areas where an LP100 could upgrade to an LP250, and that's based solely on distances to other LPFM stations, distances to translators, and also some additional issues regarding second and possibly third adjacent stations, that you've got those kinds of issues with, where we're going, that's going to control where LP 250 will go. Not some red line that says, okay, if you're in Podunk County, that you can't have it, but if you're in a very rural part of Metropolis County, you can't have it. We're not going to do that kind of redlining. We're not going to do radius. We're not going to do radii from metro areas. Although that was something we did talk about many years ago. We're not going to do radii. We're not going to do anything like that. We're going to say, hey, it'll go wherever it can fit. So, so we've got, we've got that. And also too, another issue that did not really come up until after the 2013 window, and was actually the source, and was actually a notice of concern by some of the opposition, including the NAB and such, was the concerns over interference. And we saw a huge concern play out during the window, and that was in Pasadena, California. That was the Razorcake Gorski Press LPFM application, and this was put at a site. Now keep in mind Southern California's topography, where there's mountains, valleys, there's multiple valleys and such in the Los Angeles area, and there's all these mountain ranges that go between these valleys, and so you've got a situation where you've got a station that's that may be located like a few hundred feet above the valley floor, but still has a huge mountain range behind it. So therefore, because of that huge mountain range behind the station and that low valley in front of the station, that's going to average out, and they're going to have a fairly low height above average terrain. Well, guess what? That gives them a huge, when you do contours, you look at the height above average terrain along all 360 radials. And when you're going towards the valley, obviously those height above average terrains will go much higher, where going towards the mountains, they're much lower. And so what we saw here was a case where an LPFM station had significant contour overlap into a full service station's 60 dB contour. Their interfering contour, the proposed 40 dB interfering contour, just totally crossed into the 60 of this other station. Now, the reality was that there was another mountain range between the two, and I had argued early on that that mountain range would suppress anything going into there. The FCC would eventually grant it because, quote, it met the minimum distance separations. However, for LP 250, we want to address, my goal is to get LP 250 out there. And even if that means that we need to put in some additional rules, and especially based on real life things that are happening. And, a couple of the things that we're looking at right now is, this is where the whole foothill effect thing came from. I mean, that was the case that really got us into the whole foothill effect issue, where we identify we identify the size of a contour, and in our case we said it was more than the equivalent of 50 dB, so basically an extra 10 dB in any particular direction on service contour size. So it was like 12 point something kilometers or something like that instead of the 7.1. That would trigger the foothill rules in. And the idea was if you have a service contour that big, then you have an additional requirement as an LP 250, but not as an LP 100, but as an LP 250, that you would have to make sure that your interfering contour does not hit the protected contours of any FM station. This is no different than a translator, no different than translator rules. And that was one of the things we were pushing for in that proceeding, and a lot of that was as a direct result of the Razorcake case. And this was one of those cases where I felt that common sense said, yes, we need to have this in here because there will be issues that will come up because of the distance separation. So that was a changed situation. Was the whole real world situation with that. So what we're looking at in the new LP 250, I'm working on a new LP 250 proposal. I've kind of presented it just recently to staff in an ex-parte letter. You know, we're looking at pretty much the same as what was proposed in 11749, keeping the distance separations the same on co and first adjacent, looking at second adjacent. Now, I am also doing I'm just going to say this right now, okay? And I know there's going to be a ton of you that are going to bash me for this. And, you know, this is what I do, okay? I have to look at every option. My goal is to get LP 250. And I have to look at every single opportunity. I have to look at every single option. And I do have to review what is palatable to the opposition and try to come up with a compromise. Now, remember, too, that the LCRA was a compromise between Prometheus Radio Project and the NAB. So you've got to remember that. And, you know, and we do have compromises. Now, keep in mind, I am not in any discussions, right now with the NAB. So I just, but one of the things I am exploring that was not considered on any previous proposal, but has been brought up by the NAB in previous proceedings, is I want to look at third adjacent channel. The NAB seems to be a little more receptive to a LP 250 with a third adjacent channel. Now, of course, I know that's going to make a lot of you think, oh my God, what are we doing here? First of all, if you think about the third adjacent channel issue, you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, the LCRA was intended to block, was intended to relieve the third adjacent channel. Okay, that's great and fine. Now, so if it's LP 250, then it's even less of an LCRA controversy. Now, the big question is how does this impact existing LPFM stations? And this is the reports that I'm running right now. And whether I bring this at the end or not, it's all based on that. Is what are the impacts? Now, one thing that we would have differently this time that we did not have back in 2000 was the ability to do waivers. And what are we doing? We're doing something no different than translators. We are going to the same level as translator protections for LP 250. Now, I want to make it clear, I am not proposing any changes to LP 100. LP 100 is a safety net. Always will be. There's never any changes to LP 100. But we are looking at some various things for LP 250. The other thing that we're looking at for LP 250 is bringing in the same translator interference, or the same interference remediation scheme that currently applies to the translators, the 741203A. So if you're an LP 250 and you're causing interference, and it's similar to the types of interference that a translator would be causing to somebody. So, like, for example, you've got X number of listeners within a 45 dB area, and and everybody's got a DU ratio of more than 40 and all that, and they file the complaint and such, and if the FCC rules in favor of the complainant, what's the remediation? The remediation is going to be to drop back down to LP 100. LP 100 would still remain with the existing 73809 spacings and the 73809 protections and such, and there would not be there would not be that case. But we're adding this extra little gem. If you want the privilege of going to LP 250, then these certain things would need to be met. And to me, it only makes common sense. And yeah, it's gonna make LP 250 look a little less attractive, but at the same time, it's gonna get it out there. And there's gonna be a lot of folks who'll be able to take advantage of that. So, I feel like that this MB Docket 19193 is really the last chance in our lifetime, or at least for the next 10 years or so, that we can legislate LP 250 short of congressional intervention, short of going to Congress and getting a new local community radio act, which is something I totally support. And I'd be willing to write a new LCRA. But short of that, we have no, we need to get that going. So these are some of the things that that we're working on. We've got one last chance to get this right, and we're going to try. We're going to try hard. We need everybody's support. We need testimony. We need your building penetration issues. We need to know about those communities that are just slightly outside your service area that could benefit. We're working on a new LP 250 tool to give you data, and we'll also include the third adjacent issues. Now remember that what we're seeing in a lot of cases, and what I've looked at when I look at a lot of LPFM stations, is that if they're already on a second adjacent waiver, chances are there's not a third adjacent station to worry about. So as long as they can get the second adjacent waiver, they'll be able to deal with it, even if there was a third adjacent requirement. And usually with third adjacents are usually, in many cases, not always, but in many cases, pretty close to the LPFM station. So therefore, you have strong signal, you have strong signal strength, and and remember, in the case of the waivers, the stronger the second or third adjacent channel is, the better. So again, these are some of the things that are in the workshop right now. Not saying they're going to come out at the other end, but these are the things that we are working on right now. And of course, I'm always welcoming comments. Feel free to drop them to me at lpfm@recnet.com. Drop them in the chat. Drop them in somewhere. Post them, post them in the REC forum, and various places like that. So that way we can discuss all this further. And that's pretty much what's going on. Tomorrow, Friday, is the start of the Grassroots Radio Conference in Rochester, New York. As you can tell, I'm here and not there. Many reasons, family and otherwise, have prompted my decision this year to skip out the Grassroots Radio Conference. We also have a lot of work to do on 19193, and I need every waking minute to work on this. We also have the aftermath of the LMS transition, and we are still making software updates to REC systems so we can get everything LMS ready. We'll talk about LMS in just a moment, but if you can get up to Rochester, New York for this weekend, even if you can just attend one day, you can do so. I am supposedly on the calendar somewhere. I have not heard anything other than the fact that I'm on the calendar. And I originally had proposed to do a video presentation similar to this, but no one has gotten back to me and made arrangements or anything like that. So whether I show up or not all depends on what happens on the 11th hour. So we'll just see how that all goes. But still, don't let that be the rain on your parade to not go to the GRC. If you're up in upstate New York, somewhere along the thruway there, feel free to even join in for a day. The Grassroots Radio Coalition, the Grassroots Radio folks, they are good people. And, even though REC does not align 100% with the stuff that's going on right now in the grassroots, especially with the translators and the crazy interpretations that we're seeing of the Local Community Radio Act by some folks. Still, regardless of that, there's still a lot of good people there. And if you can get there and you're fairly new to all this, or you're thinking about filing a next window, go there, get an education, get everything going. I will probably be back again next year, wherever it's going to go, as we get closer to the reality that there will be filing windows coming up, possibly for full service NCE and for LPFM. But it's a little premature for me to get into too much about that right now. So it would probably be better for me to skip out this year, so that way we can come much more fully prepared next year wherever the GRC ends up. REC continues to support the GRC website. You know, I do pay yearly. I do pay to host the GRC website. It is separately hosted from the rest of the REC J1 universe, so it is a separate bill. It is a separate expense. It's not something that I've pooled together with the REC expenses. It is an actual cash outlay that we do to support the GRC every year. Also, I mean, I actually bought a ticket for this year because I was originally planning to go. And then a lot of this stuff came up, and I had decided to cancel this year. And that's the reason why. So please, if you can get to Rochester this weekend, please join the folks and show your support for the Grassroots Radio Conference. I mean, even if it's just stopping by to buy some raffle tickets or to make a donation to the scholarship funds and such, please show your support. Finally, LMS. Let's talk quickly about LMS. The FCC, as you know, has just recently implemented the licensing and management system, the same system they've been using forever for video, to be used for FM engineering applications. So your license to cover, your modification CP applications are all going in there. LPFM has bugs, big ugly bugs. Big one is that they decided to put in this system to automatically compute your height above average terrain and to assign your ERP based on that. It's broken. It doesn't work right. You know, the test applications that I've been doing in there, the height above average terrains are way off. And so therefore it's not assigning the correct information. So what you need to do is make sure that what you're doing is you go ahead and fill out the form, but you also need to make screenshots of the FCC's height above average terrain tool and the FCC's FM power tool to show what ERP you want. I wish the FCC would just get rid of this functionality and just require us to put in a height above average terrain and put it in ERP. I wish they just let us do that, keep it simple. We had problems with the CDBS one, but the problems with the LMS one are even worse. You know, it actually set the height above average terrain for one LPFM station at negative 4,000 meters above average terrain. That would put it in the outer liquid core of the Earth. So yeah, talk about radio from hell. So yeah, again, you know, we're in the process right now of updating all of our tools. You'll see on some tools it'll say not LMS ready. What that means is that the tool will still support all the engineering records up to September 25th when they went off of CDBS, but anything September 25th and beyond is not supported, and therefore the search tools may show up results that do not reflect the actual situation. And you know, so that's pretty much what we've got here. And that is the second robocall that we have received during this 47 minutes that we've been on the air here. So anyway, so just make sure that if you are filing yourself, that you make sure that you include that additional information and check your applications. And FCC today, FCCdata.org is already pretty much LMS ready. It is showing the LMS engineering records. Obviously, there's a few bugs that we still need to work out on that. Also, FCC.today is showing the real-time LMS data. The only problem is that we have a limitation on that we can only show like the 100. We can only get 100 items at a time from the FCC using the real-time. So this is the reason why you did not see a lot of LPFM renewals show up in real time on FCC today. We're trying to work on that issue. But on a normal day, all the real-time data does come in. All right, that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat now. And if not, let's get back here to the question of, yeah, there's some interesting answers that are being attempted to on the question on the how many LPFM stations can a full power organization license. I'm going to have to get back on there and answer that question. But seeing how there's no questions in the chat or anything like that, we're going to jump on out of here. Again, if you can get to Rochester this weekend, visit the Grassroots Radio Conference. Please get to work on your comments on on MB Docket 19193. We need that. We've also got the public notice proceeding coming up here real soon. We don't have comment dates on that yet. Let's get, and that's going to actually help LPFM stations, because it's going to even going to reduce these on-air renewal filing announcements, and who knows, it might be implemented in time for stations further down in the renewal cycle, where they don't have to follow the 7 messages a day or whatever it is on the post-filing days. So just some things to think about there. All right, until we meet again, happy trails from Riverton.